Thank you. Well, so in the first session,
Welcome, ma'am. Please, ma'am, begin, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So nice of you, ma'am. Please.
thank you, Anilji. Thank you so much. So, in the first session, we looked at what academic leadership is and what it is to lead digitally. And now, in the second session, I want to throw some light on strategic planning and infrastructure, especially of universities, and then on a little bit on financial management. So let me now share my screen. Um, okay. Strategic planning and infrastructure. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for confirming. And has the screen moved?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. So we all know that the primary challenge for higher education institutions is to determine how to achieve and sustain its distinctive mission and positioning in the current funding and financial environment. मुझे यकीन है बहुत सी चीज़ों के लिए आप अपने प्रिंसिपल के पास, आप अपने एचओडी के पास जाते होंगे और कहते होंगे सर ऐसे होना चाहिए, लैब में ये चाहिए. वो कहते होंगे पैसा नहीं है, वो कहते होंगे फंडिंग नहीं है, वो कहते होंगे फिनेंस क्रंच है. और ये सच है, इसमें उनकी कोई गलती नहीं है, इसमें गवर्नमेंट की कोई गलती नहीं है. हमारे पास फिनेंस क्रंच हमेशा से था और हमेशा रहेगा. So in the dynamic world of higher education, success hinges on two crucial pillars. One is your strategic planning of your educational uplift, of your research, of your outreach, and the second is having a robust infrastructure. पर मसला ये है कि रोबस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हम सबको चाहिए. हम सब चाहेंगे कि हमारे एयर कंडीशन क्लासरूम्स हों, हमारी स्टेट ऑफ द आर्ट लेबोरेटरीज हों, हमारे पास बेस्ट ऑफ द बेस्ट ITIS इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हो. मगर ये सब डिपेंड करेगा हमारे अपने फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट और हमारी अपनी फंडिंग मैनेजमेंट स्किल्स पे. सो बाय अलाइनिंग दीज एलिमेंट्स, हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस कैन चार्ट अ कोर्स फॉर एकेडमिक एक्सीलेंस, रिसर्च ब्रेक थ्रूज and lasting societal impact. सबसे पहले आपको अपनी SWOT analysis करनी होगी. We all know strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it can be a very powerful tool to assess their current position and make informed strategic decisions. By understanding their internal strengths and weaknesses along with external opportunities and threats, higher education institutions can develop effective strategies to achieve their goals and navigate the competitive landscape of higher education. अब देखिए आपको एक छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल देती हूँ. बैक इन 2017 हमारे नए VC सर ने जब हमारे चार्ज लिया और जब वो ऑफिस में आए और वो यहीं के फैकल्टी थे, इसलिए उनको मालूम था कि हमारी स्ट्रेंथ्स वीकनेसेस क्या हैं और आउटसाइड इनसाइड हमारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज और थ्रेट्स क्या हैं. उन्होंने इस चीज़ को महसूस किया कि फंडिंग तो देखिए जितनी है, आप हर वक्त गवर्नमेंट से हर चीज़ के लिए फंडिंग नहीं मांग सकते और उसका इंतज़ाम है वो बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है, वो बहुत ही उसमें लोगों का इमोशनल कनेक्ट बहुत ज़्यादा है. और हमारे जो अलुमनाई हैं वो करोड़ों की ग्रांट्स दिया करते हैं, फंडिंग में बहुत ज़्यादा हेल्प किया करते हैं. तो एज वाइस चांसलर उन्होंने जो पहला लेटर लिखा अपने ऑफिस से, अपार्ट फ्रॉम ज्वाइनिंग एंड ऑल, है ना, वो उन्होंने एक सर्कुलर टू द वर्ल्ड AMU alumni, asking them to be on board, asking them to pay back, asking them to pay forward. और उसके बाद उन्होंने इस चीज़ को रियलाइज़ किया कि इनसे हमें बहुत अच्छी फंडिंग भी मिल सकती है, इनसे हमें बहुत अच्छी एक्सपर्टीज़ भी मिल सकती है. और उनके साथ में काम करना शुरू किया, कमिटीज़ बनाई, उसमें अलुमनाई को शामिल किया. और फिर जब 2019, 20 और 21 में कोविड-19 पेंडेमिक हुआ और हमारे मेडिकल कॉलेज में एक के बाद एक डेथ्स होने लग गई और एक के बाद एक वहाँ पे इतनी ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम्स आने लगी कि ऑक्सीजन नहीं है और ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर नहीं है और लोग मर रहे हैं और बेड्स नहीं हैं. तो alumni came forward because the alumni had been feeling like a part of the institution. They generated massive funds. करोड़ों में उन्होंने हमें चंदा इकट्ठा करके दिया और इसकी वजह से बहुत ही जल्द हमारा ऑक्सीजन प्लांट भी लग गया और हमारी ये जो ऑक्सीजन की प्रॉब्लम थी वो भी दूर हो गई. तो इस तरह से जो हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस की एकेडमिक लीडरशिप है वो अपनी स्ट्रेंथ्स वीकनेसेस को एनालाइज करके स्टेप्स ले सकती है और डेवलपमेंट इस तरह से हो सकता है. Now the first step in strategic planning is formulating goals, objectives and action steps, and the second is to monitor implementation, track progress and keep revising the plan. जरूरी नहीं है कि आपका जो एक बार प्लान बन गया वो बिल्कुल set in stone है और अब वो चेंज नहीं हो सकता, उसमें रिविजन्स हो सकते हैं. तो एक स्ट्रैटेजी की सबसे पहली रिक्वायरमेंट होती है हैविंग अ विजन एंड मिशन, जो कि जाहिर है आपके कोर वैल्यूज से अलाइंड होंगे, एस्पिरेशंस और जो डिजायर्ड इम्पैक्ट है और इस पर ही आपकी नजर होनी चाहिए. देखिए ये कितना अच्छा जुमला यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है. Think of it as the North Star that guides all your decisions. तो एक चीज जो आपकी HEI की कोर वैल्यू है, कोर एस्पिरेशन है और आपके पूरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल कम्युनिटी का डिजायर्ड इम्पैक्ट है ना, पूरे एकेडमिक कम्युनिटी का और उसके आगे भी, उसे हमेशा मद्देनजर रखना है, मलहूज़ खातिर रखना है, इसे उर्दू में कहा जाता है. उसके बाद आप सिचुएशनल एनालिसिस करेंगे. यू विल टेक स्टॉक ऑफ योर इंटरनल स्ट्रेंथ्स एंड वीकनेसेस एंड एक्सटर्नल अपॉर्चुनिटीज एंड दिस एनालिसिस विल हेल्प यू आइडेंटिफाई potential roadblocks and capitalize on promising avenues. फिर देखिए जब आप गोल सेटिंग करते हैं तो ये जो वर्ड है ना स्मार्ट, आजकल हर चीज में स्मार्ट कह दिया जाता है और बड़ा दखल है स्मार्ट सॉल्यूशंस का, स्मार्ट मशीन्स का, स्मार्ट टेक्नोलॉजी का, स्मार्ट पीपल, स्मार्ट स्ट्रैटेजी. इसका अगर हम एक एक्सपेंशन करें तो ये बहुत ही अच्छा है. स्पेसिफिक, मेजरेबल, अचीवेबल, रेलेवेंट एंड टाइम बाउंड. स्पेसिफिक, मेजरेबल, अचीवेबल, रेलेवेंट एंड टाइम बाउंड. तो गोल्स कभी भी हेजी नहीं होने चाहिए, बड़े स्पेसिफिक होने चाहिए, ऐसे होने चाहिए जिनकी आप नाप तोल कर सकें, ऐसे होने चाहिए कि वो अचीव हो सकें, आपके लिए रेलेवेंट होने चाहिए और टाइम बाउंड होने चाहिए. मैं 5 साल में इसे कर लूंगा, मैं 1 साल में इसे कर लूंगा, ये नहीं कि ये जो है वो जिंदगी भर ये चलता रहेगा. सो दीज गोल्स शुड एनकम्पस एकेडमिक एक्सीलेंस, रिसर्च प्रोडक्टिविटी, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट, स्टूडेंट सक्सेस एंड कम्युनिटी एंगेजमेंट. तो स्मार्ट गोल सेटिंग का मैं आपको आपकी पर्सनल लाइफ में एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एग्जाम्पल देती हूँ. फर्ज कीजिए कि इस न्यू ईयर आपने ये फैसला किया कि आपको हेल्थ अच्छी करनी है, वेट लूज करना है, फिटनेस, अपनी फिटनेस एंड वेलबींग पे आपको इस साल फोकस करना है. तो अब ये नहीं कि हाँ मुझे फिटनेस पे करना है, पर क्या करना है, आपको बहुत स्पेसिफिक होना है. पहला ये कि मुझे अपना वेट कम करना है, ठीक है, ये एक स्पेसिफिक गोल हुआ. अब ये नहीं कि हाँ कम करना है, ये कि उसको कितना पाउंड, कितना केजी हर महीने कम करना है. और जो आपका गोल है वो क्या है, अभी आप 80 किलो के, आपको 60 किलो का होना है, ये आपको 60 किलो का होना है. तो ये एक नॉन अचीवेबल गोल है, ठीक है. इस तरह की है. क्या आपके लिए ये गोल सेटिंग जो है वो रेलेवेंट है, इसकी कोई इंपॉर्टेंस है? और अगर नहीं है तो इसको सेट करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. फाइनली इट हैज टू बी टाइम बाउंड. अगले साल तक मुझे ये करना है, तो आप उसको, जो आपकी डेडलाइन है, आप उसको चेस करते रहेंगे. तो ये स्मार्ट एजुकेशन में काफी ज्यादा यूज हो रहा है आजकल. द एक्सपेंशन ऑफ स्मार्ट, दैट इज स्पेसिफिक, मेजरेबल, अचीवेबल, रेलेवेंट एंड टाइम बाउंड. यू हैव स्ट्रेटेजिक इनिशिएटिव्स, देन यू एलोकेट रिसोर्सेज, कहाँ से कितना पैसा किस चीज के लिए लगाना है, और so you do that accordingly, and you continue to take feedback, and you continue to revise your strategy. जैसे मैंने शुरू में भी कहा कि ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने जो गोल सेट कर लिया वही गोल सेट है और अब आप इसमें कोई जो है कोई चेंज नहीं कर सकते हैं. तो robust infrastructure, towards a robust infrastructure, first comes the physical infrastructure, and then comes the information technology infrastructure. Then you have research infrastructure, laboratories, equipment, etc. And then nowadays, sustainable infrastructure. Many colleges and many universities these days are having solar power plants, rooftop solar PV panels. This is a step towards having a sustainable infrastructure through energy efficiency. There is something very important called waste management. It ensures environmental responsibility and long-term cost effect. The effects of climate change and global warming. So this gives us that kind of infrastructure which will help us do our bit. देखिए, एनवायरनमेंट कंजर्वेशन के लिए और प्रोटेक्शन के बारे में हम जब भी बात करते हैं तो कोई ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आपके करने से पूरा मसला हल हो जाए. इसमें हम सबको अपना अपना हिस्सा लेना है, अपना अपना हक अदा करना है. अब बाकी जो दुनिया में हो रहा है वो पूरा आप नहीं बदल पाएंगे, लेकिन आपको उससे ये सेटिस्फैक्शन होएगा कि आपने जो किया वो अच्छा किया. Now, in order to sync your strategy planning with infrastructure, you have to focus on project management. Infrastructure and research projects should directly contribute to achieving strategic goals, and every brick laid and every experiment conducted should propel your higher education institution towards its vision. Decisions have to be data driven. Data is your map guiding you towards informed choices. हवा में आपने कोई डिसीजन ले लिया, आपके पास कोई हिस्टोरिकल डेटा नहीं है, आपके पास कोई प्रोजेक्ट प्रोग्रेस को मैप करने का, उसको मेजर करने का डेटा नहीं है, आपकी ग्रिप खत्म हो जाएगी आपके प्रपोजल से. We have to have a culture of continuous improvement and adaptability. So last minute adjustments and to your course based on emerging trends and feedback one has to do. And then there are collaborations and partnerships. There is entrepreneurship, there is student internship, there are private companies, government agencies, research institutions, and a lot of exchange of knowledge to undertake joint ventures. Now, planning of a financial strategy for a higher education institution, because it is very crucial. It has to be strategically planned, and it has to be very mindful of the given financial year. So HEIs have to tap on their existing sources of income. At the same time, look for other opportunities. Just like I gave you the example. And in the current educational financial landscape, higher education institutions are urged to be self-reliant and focused on investment strategies for a secure future. For example, HIFA. So I don't know in how many colleges and universities HIFA had been offered, but it's a good investment strategy. And one of the important verticals of the new system where the the Higher Education Commission of India will depend on HIFA, will depend on HIRA, will depend on NAC, etc. And कोई कुछ पूछ रहा है? No.
It was just a disturbance, ma'am. Thank you. Sorry for disturbance.
Okay. All right. So massive infrastructure endowments are available from the government under HIFA, and after 10 years, from the proceeds raised from this investment, the investment has to be returned, and that is the scheme that is called HIFA, and we can all make use of this scheme, and we can all have new building and better infrastructure by using the funds in HIFA. The AIU, it works as a link. We all know the Association of Indian Universities. It works as a link between the government and the universities, and it trains institutions on how to approach foundations for philanthropic funding and whom to approach, because many philanthropic organizations, there is Oxfam, there is Ford Foundation, there is many philanthropic organizations are funding educational projects in universities and in colleges. So it is important for leaders to know the nits and grits of sources of income and avenues for raising funds. Why a financial strategy is required? Because it mitigates risks, and because finances are so important. Future resource needs, strategic opportunities for collaboration, e-learning, etc. Everything comes under that. Now, for a given higher education institution, these are the 4 sources of income. First is the tuition fee from the students. Second is the government grants and subsidies. Third is the overheads earned on the sponsored research and development projects from the government and private corporate sector. And fourth is the endowments from philanthropic contributions and other income like CSR royalties, in intellectual property, patents, consultancies, etc., etc. So these are the only 4 sources that we have. How do we increase these funding sources? First is alumni donations. For this, we need to have a very strong alumni connect, a program where we have committees for committees that are pursuing these projects with the people there. Then we have private sector, industry partnerships, fundraising campaigns. We can create income generation avenues like sale of products created in labs. एक दफ़ा हमारे यहाँ एक बहुत अच्छा, आपको बताऊं, बड़ा अच्छा एक इनिशिएटिव ये लिया गया था कि हमारे यहाँ पे यूनिवर्सिटी पॉलिटेक्निक है, उसमें लेदर टेक्नोलॉजी का भी एक सेक्शन है, और वहाँ पे लड़कों को लेदर टेक्नोलॉजी से अपना रोजगार के लिए उनको वहाँ पे इंजीनियरिंग में डिप्लोमा की डिग्री दी जाती है. तो हम लोगों ने 2-3 साल बस ये डिसीजन ले लिया कि हम ये जो हम सोवेनियर देते हैं ना हर प्रोग्राम में, अपने लोगों को जो गेस्ट्स आते हैं, जो स्पीकर्स आते हैं, सोवेनियर देते हैं, उन्हें हम कोई भी सोवेनियर बाहर से खरीद के नहीं देंगे. हम उन्हें सोवेनियर खरीद के देंगे सिर्फ लेदर का, और ये वो होगा जो हमारे यहाँ हमारे पॉलिटेक्निक में बना है, इसका प्रोडक्शन अच्छा होगा वहाँ पे. तो वो बहुत अच्छा एक तरीका था इनकम जनरेशन का. Teachers are encouraged to take research projects, encouraged to have patents, have IPRs, and we can also tap into CSR funding और sponsorship events की मिल सकती है, बहुत मिलती है, स्पेशली ये जो स्टूडेंट्स के इवेंट्स होते हैं. कोचिंग सेंटर्स भी इनमें कभी कभी स्पॉन्सरशिप्स दे देते हैं, या जो दवा की कंपनियां होती हैं वो आपके मेडिकल कॉलेज के जो प्रोग्राम्स हैं उनको स्पॉन्सरशिप दे सकते हैं, और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फैसिलिटीज के लिए भी आपको फंड्स मिल सकते हैं. So this was about having a financial infrastructure. I will now stop this presentation and I will now move on to the other part. Just let me quickly change the slide. We will now look at principles of management and developing financial infrastructure. Okay, so principles of management. All right. Planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling are the various facets of management. Leadership is different from management. Business Insight says that leadership deals with change, management deals with complexity. The focus in leadership is on thinking, change, and innovation and doing the right things. And the focus in management is doing the things right. So there's a difference between doing the right things and doing the things right. Execution, implementation, etc. In leadership, the main processes are formulating visions, aligning people, motivating and inspiring and influencing people, as I said in my first presentation. And in management, planning projects, organizing people, monitoring progress and performance, and problem solving. Similarly, the orientation of leadership is long-term and it's for the future, whereas the orientation of management is for the present and it's very, very short-term. So your daily work is high level and strategic, and in management, your daily work is ground level and tactical. What managers seek to achieve is order, consistency, efficiency, and stability, whereas what leaders seek to achieve is change, newness, effectiveness, and movement. So these are the 14 principles of management. Division of work, authority and responsibility, discipline, unity of command, unity of direction, subordination of individual interest to general interest, remuneration of employees, centralization and decentralization, the scalar chain, order, equity, stability of personnel, initiative, and esprit de corps. Now, centralization and decentralization is explained by this chart here. Take the initiative, and that's how they give remuneration to the employees. Now, when it comes to infrastructure management, we have buildings, we have transport, we have water supply, power supply, and lately, the IT infrastructure. It needs a multidisciplinary approach. So there are asset management of a flow chart. We have financial infrastructure, and it's the heart of the financial system and a prerequisite for its operation. So it comprises of the technical systems that deal with payments and financial instruments. A robust financial infrastructure would enable the institutions to make and receive payments safely and efficiently, along with creating routes for sustained research funding options. So these days, we all know we have PFMS, we have Treasury Single Account. PFMS is a online digital mode. It's a management system, and these days we have a treasury single account that's called the TSA, and all that has improved our financial infrastructure. There are three separate and overlapping areas. One is reporting, one is management, and another is accounting. In higher education institutions, financial decisions analyze and interpret financial data for meeting the objectives, and financial management refers to planning, organizing, directing, and controlling the financial activities. And financial management is one of the most important aspects of higher education management. Now, these are the components of financial management. Analyze financial needs, forecast financial needs, manage working capital, plan capital structure, organize financial operations, monitor and control finances. Now, this is the hierarchy for a higher education institution regarding the finance officers. So at the top comes the finance committee. The finance committee has a certain constitution, and committee, the finance officer works. Under him, there are several JFOs, joint finance officers. Then there are several DOs. Then there are assistant finance officers, and then there are consultants. So, improvement of the financial infrastructure requires a focus on funding sources, budget allocation, transparency, financial sustainability, investment strategy, collaboration. That means collaboration between academia and research, collaboration between academia, research, and industry, and more stakeholder engagement, wherein I have already spoken to you about the alumni funding. UGC guidelines for IDP for higher education institutions says that the higher education institution should have the following infrastructure for achieving excellence. And all the higher education institutions have been asked to make their IDP, to make an institutional development plan. So physical and digital infrastructure, innovative academic infrastructure, research and IPR, supportive and facilitative, and then infrastructure for networking and collaboration, and then effective governance structure and financial independence and stability. I will share this reading material with you, and if you want, you can see further these resources, and you can make use of more material on them. Now, because I have been talking to you about how the new education policy envisages some of the major changes in the higher education sector, it envisages to reorganize the sector. I would very much like to talk to you a little bit about the HECI, the Higher Education Commission of India. How this commission has been planned and how it has been envisaged that the existing structures will give way to the HECI. All right. What is the Higher Education Commission of India? We all know presently we have UGC, presently we have AICTE, we have NAC, we have NBA. So too many regulatory authorities, too many standard setting authorities and institutions getting stuck in a quagmire of the sorts. So the NEP envisages some problems in the existing regulatory models. Now, what are these problems? The clause 18.1 of the NEP categorically enlists a series of flaws in the existing regulatory model. Number one is Regulation of higher education has been too heavy-handed for decades. And this is, let me tell you, this is not the case in foreign universities. They enjoy a lot more autonomy as compared to what we do. Too much has been attempted to be regulated with too little effect. And the mechanistic and disempowering nature of the regulatory system has been rife with very basic problems. Now, what are these basic problems? Heavy concentrations of power within a few bodies, conflicts of interest among these bodies, and a resulting lack of accountability. So the regulatory system is in need of a complete overhaul in order to re-energize the higher education sector and enable it to thrive. So the policy proposes the HECI as the solution to this need of complete overhaul. So NEP 2020 recommendations for governance reforms are that it recommends a model of regulatory system of higher education, which will ensure that the distinct functions, and I have been saying that regulation, accreditation, funding, and academic standard setting, they will be performed by distinct, independent, and empowered bodies. This is considered essential to create checks and balances in the system, minimize conflicts of interest, and eliminate concentrations of power. जैसे कि मैंने पिछले स्लाइड में आपसे बात की decentralization की, from centralization to decentralization. So to ensure that the four institutional structures carrying out these four essential functions work independently, yet at the same time, and work in synergy towards common goals, the HECI, which is an umbrella body that has been envisioned, and under this new model, there will be an overarching body called HECI, and under that body, we will have for regulation NHERC, for accreditation the NAC, the NAC, not NAAC, but NAC, for funding the HEGC, and for academic standard setting, the GEC. Now, one by one, we will look at
Please, dear participants, switch off, please.
Okay. So NHERC is the National Higher Education Regulatory Council. The National Accreditation Council will be replacing the NBA and the NAC. Then we have for most of the job that the UGC does, we will be having the Higher Education Grants Council, which will be the HEGC. And finally, we will have General Education Council and the National Higher Education Qualification Framework, which will be the standard setting apex body that will be working under the HECI. HECI will be the highest regulatory body. It will represent, and as I said, it's a plural. Our country is best defined as a pluralistic society with too much diversity. So in all its vividness, HECI will represent the entire country. And as the first principle, its membership will represent institution, gender, as well as disciplinary diversity. And it will aim to govern light but tight, and it shall neither over-regulate its four verticals that I have just named, or nor aim to over-govern the higher educational landscape. So it shall encourage more autonomy and command more accountability by design. The functions of the HECI will be to prepare the guidelines, to support the verticals, these 4 verticals that I spoke about for funding, regulation, accreditation, and for academic standard setting. These 4 verticals will be supported by HECI. It will track and monitor the work of these 4 verticals, and it will acknowledge the bottlenecks and appreciate constructive feedback and review the outcomes. Now, first thing first, the NHERC. So, just like the Indian political setup, Indian higher educational landscape has a federal structure too. NHERC establishes a regulatory framework that acknowledges and appreciates the federal structure of higher education. It shall encourage coordination and cooperation between the Ministry of Education, the state governments, and the state educational councils, higher education councils of the states. And NHERC shall also ensure that all multidisciplinary higher education institutions aim to pursue teaching, research, and community engagement of the highest quality. So it shall acknowledge and encourage various models of excellence in higher education. Then comes the NAC for decentralization of the accreditation process, and it will have a binary approach which will be based on input as well as output. So transparency and accountability of the accredited institution. NAC framework shall envisage to accredit the higher education institutions for graded autonomy in the short run and for binary autonomy in the long run. So the NAC framework shall empower all higher education institutions to take actions that are not prohibitive, encourage them to be responsive to the need of the students, faculty, and staff, and envision them to reach to the epitome of excellence for the larger societal transformation. So the first vertical was for regulation, second for accreditation, and here comes the third, that is for financial autonomy. Higher Education Grants Council. It will support financial autonomy of the higher education institutions and also encourage financial responsibility. So, unlike the present day mechanistic devolution of funds with too much concentration of power in the funding agency, systematic disbursement of funds on the basis of norms will happen, on the basis of norms, plan, and performance will happen. And while norm-based funding is encouraged, the council needs to be to give an account for sources of real financial constraints and for the HEIs and the state government. And then comes the GEC, that is the council to determine the graduate attributes, which are subject knowledge, critical thinking, and our graduates should have clarity and thought of communication, which unfortunately is something that is lacking today. They come out with degrees, but they don't know the subject. They are not critical thinkers. They are only looking for instructions to follow, and they lack a lot of clarity and a lot of communication. So the GEC should strive to integrate vocational education into higher education, and it will establish the NHEQF, that is the National Higher Education Qualification. And this is all being done to improve the employability of the students, to improve graduate employability, and to prevent brain drain. The GEC needs to establish guidelines for seamless transfer of credit from one higher education institution to another, as well as establish norms at par with international standards. So we all know about the ABC, the Academic Bank of Credit. And we all know that now it will be possible for students to take multiple exit from the FIUP and then also to change institutions. The GEC will be setting the standards for this transition to be seamless. As part of GEC, the NHEQF will also be working towards student and graduate employability. So it'll work in sync with the National Skills Qualification Framework, to ease the integration of vocational education into higher education. So additionally, it points out that higher education qualifications leading to a degree, diploma, certificate shall be described by the NHEQF in terms of outcome-based learning outcomes. So the policy also envisages the setting up of facilitative norms or issues such as credit transfer and equivalence through NHEQF, just like NHEQF also recognizes that each student has specific characteristics in terms of previous learning levels and experiences, life experiences, learning styles, and approaches to future career-related actions. So one size fits all is not the correct approach. We can't measure all our students from the same yardstick. So it'll be great when NHEQF will facilitate that. The quality, depth and breadth of the learning experiences made available to the students help develop their characteristic attributes. As the graduate attributes reflect disciplinary knowledge, understanding, and skills related to the chosen fields of learning, generic learning outcomes that all students enrolled in different programs of study should acquire and be able to achieve and demonstrate. So these are the types of qualifications, and that is the nomenclature. Say, for example, the bachelor's degree will be Bachelor of the field of study or discipline, and Bachelor of Arts, BA, a Bachelor of Science, BSc, and then similarly BCom for Commerce, BVOC, BBA, Physical Education Program, B.Ed. These are the bachelor's degree. Certificate, diploma, bachelor's, and honors. These are the 4 exit points that students will be getting if they leave the FYUP in 1 year, if they leave the FYUP in 2 years. For 2 years, it will be UG diploma. For 1 year, it will be UG certificate. For 3 years, it will be bachelor. For 4 years, it will be honors with research. And as a result of that, the PG diploma will be 2 years. The master's degree program. So 1 year, 2 semesters in the cases of those who exit after successful completion of the first year and of the 2-year master's degrees program. So the nomenclature for the degrees in enabling multiple exit in the 4-year undergraduate program is this way. And similarly, as part of NHEQF, we will have several levels. So at the beginning, level 4.5 will be UG certificate. Just for the first year, that is 2 semesters and 4 credit skills, and so on and so forth. And the doctoral degree will be at level 8, master's degree at level 7. The 2-year, the 4-year, after the 4-year bachelor's degree, another 2 years for 4 semesters, and that will be level 7. But after the 4 years bachelor's degree, if one wants an exit from the master's program in 1 year, then level 6.5. Now, what will the NHEQF do? It will improve transparency. It will enhance understanding of education and training systems. It will promote credit accumulation and transfer between programs and transfer between institutions. There will be more accountability. Education and training system will be more demand-focused and user-friendly, and mismatch between education and the labor market will be addressed, which is very important. We have students coming out with, BScs and BAs and MScs and highly specialized subjects, but there is no acceptability of these subjects in the job market, in the labor market. So this is what NHEQF will do, and it's the need of the hour. So it'll also facilitate the recognition of any prior learning say, for example, right now, earlier what we had is that if somebody did 2 years in a BSc program and left the program because of some reason, because of some adversity, what happened was that he could not come back to the program. All those 2 years were wasted. And if one wanted to continue education, one had to start anew, whereas now that is not the case. Just like we have the EQF, we will also have the SQF, the National Skill Qualification Framework. It shall organize qualifications according to a series of levels of knowledge, skills, and aptitude. And these levels are defined in terms of learning outcomes, which the learner must possess, regardless of whether they were acquired through formal, non-formal, or informal learning. It will ensure that a nationally integrated education and competency-based skill framework that will provide for multiple pathways, horizontal as well as vertical, both within vocational education and vocational training, and among vocational education, vocational training, general education, and technical education, thus linking one level of learning to another higher level. And it will also enable a person to acquire desired competency levels, transit to the job market, and at an opportune time, and return for acquiring additional skills to further upgrade their competencies. The key elements of NSQF, they provide national principles for recognizing skill proficiencies, multiple entry and exit between vocational education, general education, progression pathways within skill qualification framework, opportunities to promote lifelong learning, partnerships with industry, a transparent, accountable, and credible mechanism for skill development across various sectors, and increased potential for recognition of prior learning. So right now, see, we have so many standard setting bodies. For agricultural education, it is ICAR. For veterinary studies, it is the Veterinary Council of India, VCI. For B.Ed and for M.Ed and for teacher education, it is the NCTE. For architecture, it's the Council of Architecture. So if somebody is doing a B.Arch or somebody is doing an M.Arch, the standard setting body is the Council of Architecture. There is the Council for Vocational Education and Training. There's the Medical Council of India. There's the Bar Council of India for legal studies, for laws, for studies in the law. So these are very confusing. These are very difficult to set accountability on, and these are having too many regulatory bodies means having difficulty in coordinating with them. So the new education policy has in its mind a certain fate of professional standard setting bodies. So as per the clause of 18.7, the professional councils will act as professional standard setting bodies. They will play a key role in the higher education system and will be invited to be members of the GEC. So these bodies, after restructuring as the professional standard setting bodies, will continue to draw the curriculum, lay down academic standards, and coordinate between teaching, research, and extension, but under one umbrella, and that is the GEC. The NEP also provides the provision for Board of Governors. According to the clause 19.2 to 19.5, the Board of Governors shall consist of a group of highly qualified, competent, and dedicated individuals having proven capabilities and strong sense of commitment to the institution. So it shall be established after appropriate graded accreditations are received by the higher education institution. Board of Governors of any institution will be empowered empowered to govern the institution free of any external interference, make all appointments, including that of head of the institution, and take all decisions regarding governance. Right now, this is not the case. Everything is very, very centralized. There shall be overarching legislation that will supersede any contravening provisions of other earlier legislation and would provide for constitution, appointment, modalities of functioning, rules and regulations, and the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Governors. Board of Governors will be responsible for meeting all regulatory guidelines mandated by the Higher Education Commission of India through the National Higher Education Regulatory Council, that is the NHERC, and that is the first vertical of the HECI. Of course, new members can always be identified and included by an expert committee. A selection of new members shall be carried out by the Board of Governors itself. There will be no outside intervention. There will be no outside control. And it is envisaged that all higher education institutions will be incentivized, supported, and mentored during this process and shall aim to become autonomous and have such an empowered Board of Governors by 2035. So the Board of Governors shall be responsible and accountable to the stakeholders through transparent self-disclosures of all relevant records. If you want to read more, that's where you can find more about how the national education policy envisages a complete overhaul and a complete reorganization of the higher education regulation, funding, standard setting, and accreditation process. So thank you. I will end this presentation here. Do you want me to very quickly take you through how to get grants? We have another 15.
Yes, ma'am. It depends on you, ma'am. If you have time, ma'am. Otherwise, though you have covered so well, really, it's an amazing lecture.
Thank you.
Well, it is a complete revision of NEP 2022, covering entire regulatory bodies across the country. Really, it is a sensitization. In fact, revision of NEP, what I have studied last year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really, ma'am, amazing. So it's so amazing lecture delivered by you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, I request Dr. Anchal for the formal vote of thanks. It depends on ma'am if Professor Faiza ma'am may take further 10 minutes. She is most welcome. Otherwise, the Dr. Anchal may be stand by.
Yes, and I would be very much interested to take up any questions if there are, Dr. Anil. If the participants have any discussions, any observations, not just questions or answers, even if there are any observations, I would like to talk.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks, ma'am.
So, for example,
house is opened by the expert. Please request the experts. Do you have any doubt? Please straight away ask from the expert, Professor Faiza ma'am.
Yes.
Excuse me,
Yes,
ma'am.
Anjali madam. Bataiye.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening to all.
Good evening.
क्वेश्चन मैम मेरा कुछ नहीं है, सिर्फ आपने ऑब्जर्वेशन वर्ड यूज किया, तो मैं सिर्फ अपनी अगर ऑब्जर्वेशन आपसे क्लियर करना चाहूँ तो मैम ऑब्जर्वेशन मेरी यही थी, आपका जो वे ऑफ टॉकिंग और जो स्टाइल था ना मैम कम्युनिकेशन का, बहुत ही अलग, बहुत ही शानदार।
थैंक यू सो मच।
मतलब एक्टिव होता है, इंटरैक्टिव होता है, बट इतना अट्रैक्टिव था कि मतलब सुने बिना रहा नहीं गया। Continuously.
Ma'am, sovereignty in your voice is awesome, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
बहुत ज्यादा यूनिकनेस था मैम इस चीज में, मतलब सुनकर बहुत अच्छा लग रहा था। आपके शब्दों को सुनना ज्यादा अच्छा लग रहा था, समझना शायद थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट लेवल था, उस पर इतना ध्यान नहीं गया क्योंकि आप बोल इतना सुंदर रही थी, तो सुने बिना रहा नहीं गया। मैम थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू सो मच मैम।
जी बहुत शुक्रिया। मेरा
वर्ड आपने एक्सप्लेन किया, उस ग्रीट वर्ड का आपके अंदर वो कूट-कूट के वो भरा हुआ है। वो वाक़ई वो दिखता है। बिल्कुल मैम।
थैंक यू सो मच मैम। जहाँ तक मैम आपकी तारीफ करने वाले हम हरियाणा के हैं, क्योंकि हम तो लठमार बोली के लिए फेमस है, तो एक सॉफ्ट स्पोकन बंदा हमने काफी ड्यूरेशन के बाद सुना है मैम। योर वॉइस इज सो सॉफ्ट मैम, सो स्वीट, एंड इट वाज रियली प्लेजर टू हियर यू मैम। इट वाज वेरी नाइस। थैंक यू सो मच।
वेरी मच डॉक्टर।
थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू। मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई कि आप सबसे आज मुझे बात करने का मौका मिला। मैं खुद डॉक्टर शफाली की बहुत तहे दिल से शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि उन्होंने मुझे ये मौका दिया, और अच्छी खासी आपकी तादाद है, 40 से ऊपर 50 के करीब लोग हैं आपके कोर्स में। और हम इस तरह से इन्हीं प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे आगे भी मिलते रहें। वो एक शेर है, आपने सुना होगा, उसका पहला मिसरा तो मुझे याद नहीं हो, कहते ना, मेरा दर खुला है खुला ही रहेगा, ये दीपक जला है जला ही रहेगा। तो इस तरह के जो कॉन्टिन्यूअस प्रोफेशनल डेवलपमेंट की अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं उसमें आप शामिल होते रहें और एक दूसरे से ऐसे ही मिलते रहें। कुछ दोस्तियाँ, कुछ ज़िंदगी भर के रिश्ते, कुछ नेटवर्क ऐसा ज़रूर लेकर के जाएंगे जो कहीं ना कहीं आपको आने वाली ज़िंदगी में इसका बहुत फ़ायदा मिलेगा। इससे आपकी एक पहचान बनेगी, और मुझे तो बहुत खुशी होगी कि अगर आप में से किसी और से मेरी दोबारा कभी मुलाकात हो। अंजलि मैडम है, डॉक्टर अंजलि सहवाग,
सेम हियर
जी, मधुबाला, मुझे बहुत खुशी होगी कि अगर आइंदा भी फिर कभी आपसे मुलाकात हो। और
आपको सुनना जरूर चाहेंगे मैम।